They each had exactly one song that mattered commercially. Decades later, those same songs are still cashing checks. In movies, in commercials, in streaming royalties that never seem to stop coming. These are the 1970s one-hit wonders that still earn millions decades later. Number 5. Hooked on a Feeling by Blue Swede. Blue Swede's Hooked on a Feeling hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 1 week in April 1974, making the Swedish band the first act from their country to top the American chart. Arriving the very same day, ABBA won the Eurovision Song Contest with Waterloo. Though contrary to a popular misconception in Sweden, the two events did not actually happen on the same calendar day. It was a cover. Mark James had written the song originally for B.J. Thomas in 1968, where it reached number 5 on the Hot 100, featuring a distinctive electric sitar part played by Reggie Young. A 1971 version by British artist Jonathan King had added the famous Ooga Chaka vocal hook that Blue Swede's recording made unforgettable, after producer Bengt Palmers happened to catch King's performance of the song on the BBC's Top of the Pops while visiting London, and decided it would work well for his Swedish act, Björn Skifs, and his band Bloodless, later rebranded Blue Swede for the American market. King himself, when later asked about the cover, said he had given his blessing readily, assuming a Swedish hit would only sell around 20,000 copies, a guess that turned out to be wildly, almost comically, off the mark. The band did have one more top 10 hit that same year, with a cover of the Association's Never My Love, reaching number 7. But for most listeners, Blue Swede means exactly one song. The first major revival came in 1992, when the song appeared on the soundtrack of Quentin Tarantino's debut film, Reservoir Dogs. The exposure was significant enough that the song subsequently charted in Iceland, reaching number 2 in March 1993, more than 19 years after its original American chart run. Then, in January 1998, an episode of the legal drama Ally McBeal titled Cro-Magnon used the song to soundtrack a hallucinated computer-generated dancing baby, illustrating the main character's anxiety about her biological clock, a sequence that became known online as Baby Cha-Cha and turned into one of the earliest viral internet memes, years before the term viral was common usage. A website built entirely around the dancing baby, and the song became an early landmark of internet pop culture. The real financial transformation came in 2014, when Marvel Studios used Hooked on a Feeling prominently in the trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy, starring Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana. Industry sources reported the song's digital sales jumped roughly 700% in a single day after the trailer premiered on Jimmy Kimmel Live, with more than 2,000 downloads in 24 hours, the song's best single day of sales in its entire history up to that point, breaking a previous daily record of 1,000 downloads. The film's soundtrack album, Awesome Mix Volume 1, opened with Hooked on a Feeling as its first track, and went on to top the Billboard 200 album chart in August 2014. An extraordinary feat for an album built entirely around decades-old recordings. Producer Bengt Palmers and lead singer Björn Skifs were given Platinum Award plaques by Disney's Stockholm office in 2016, commemorating 1 million copies sold of that soundtrack. The song reappeared in marketing for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in 2017, and Skifs performed it live as the opening act for the Eurovision Song Contest final in Malmö in 2024, 50 years after its original chart run, still generating new attention and new royalty cycles with each fresh appearance. Number 4. Disco Duck by Rick Dees and his cast of idiots. Rick Dees was a Memphis radio disc jockey when he wrote Disco Duck in 1976, reportedly taking just 1 day to write the song, but 3 months to convince anyone to actually perform and release it. The novelty record, built around a Donald Duck-style vocal, layered over disco production, with the duck voice performed by an acquaintance of Dees named Ken Pruitt. Despite a persistent misconception that Walt Disney's original Donald Duck voice actor Clarence Nash was involved, which the Disney company has repeatedly and explicitly denied, reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 1 week in October of that year, and sold more than 4 million copies. eventually earning Dees a People's Choice Award for Favorite New Song in 1977. The song was inspired by an earlier 1960s novelty dance record called The Duck, recorded by Jackie Lee in 1965, which Dees reworked into something built specifically for the disco moment. The song's path to release was unusual even by novelty record standards. It was initially put out by a small Memphis label, Estelle Axton's Fratone Records, before being picked up by RSO Records for wider national and international distribution. Ironically, the radio stations in Dees's own city largely refused to play it. His employer at the time, WMPSAM, forbade him from playing his own song on his own program, and rival stations in Memphis avoided it as well, reportedly out of concern that doing so would amount to promoting a direct competitor's on-air talent. When Dees discussed the song on air without actually playing it, his station fired him over the perceived conflict of interest. He was hired almost immediately afterward by a competing Memphis station, WHBQAM, and went on to build one of the most recognizable careers in American radio and television, eventually hosting the nationally syndicated countdown show Rick Dees' Weekly Top 40 for decades.
Look at me, I'm the Disco Duck.
Disco Duck made a cameo appearance in the 1977 film Saturday Night Fever, used in a dance club scene depicting a group of dancers learning disco moves, and it also turned up in a deleted scene that was later restored to the film's PG-rated home video release. According to Dees, his manager at the time made the decision to deny the song's inclusion on the official Saturday Night Fever soundtrack album, fearing it would compete commercially with the song's own single sales. That soundtrack album went on to sell more than 40 million copies worldwide, becoming the second best-selling movie soundtrack of all time, a missed opportunity that, by Dees's own account, likely cost him a substantial amount of additional royalty income at the height of the song's earning potential. Even without that soundtrack placement, Disco Duck has continued generating revenue through licensing for television, trivia games such as Trivial Pursuit, game show appearances including Jeopardy, and continuous availability across every major streaming platform, where it remains permanently in catalog rotation more than 4 decades after it first confused and delighted radio listeners across the country. Number 3. Convoy by C.W. McCall. C.W. McCall was not a real person. He was an advertising character invented by Bill Fries, a creative director at the Bozell and Jacobs Agency in Omaha, Nebraska. Fries had created the character in 1973 for a Clio award-winning advertising campaign for Old Home Bread, narrating commercials as a fictional truck driver who hauled goods for the Metz Baking Company and romanced a waitress named Mavis at the Old Home Filler Up and Keep On a Truckin' Cafe in fictional Pisgah, Iowa. The campaign was popular enough that Fries, working with composer and arranger Chip Davis, who would go on to found the holiday music phenomenon Mannheim Steamroller, decided to turn the advertising character into an actual recording career, releasing the first McCall album, Wolf Creek Pass, in 1974. Convoy, released in 1975 as the second single from the follow-up album Black Bear Road, became the unlikely product of that decision. Fries later explained that the idea came directly from his own experience. He and Davis had purchased a CB radio themselves to listen to the way truckers actually communicated, fascinated by their specific jargon, and decided to write a song about a fictitious nationwide convoy defying speed limits, ignoring tolls, and rolling clear across the country. Built around CB radio slang and a fictional cross-country trucking convoy, the song captured the genuine cultural moment of the mid-1970s CB radio fad, which followed the 1973 oil crisis and the newly imposed 55-mile-per-hour national speed limit, a trend that Forbes magazine, at the time, predicted could become a billion-dollar industry within a decade. Convoy spent 1 week at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 106 weeks at number 1 on the Hot Country Songs chart, while also topping the charts in Canada on the RPM Top Singles chart in January 1976 and reaching number 2 in the United Kingdom. It sold more than 2 million copies and earned a gold record certification from the RIAA in December 1975. The song's parent album, Black Bear Road, spent 9 weeks at number 1 on the Top Country Albums chart, and Chip Davis won Country Music Writer of the Year for 1976 on the strength of his work composing the music, despite later acknowledging he didn't even particularly enjoy the country genre himself. Convoy inspired a 1978 film of the same name, directed by Sam Peckinpah and starring Chris Christopherson as McCall, alongside Ali MacGraw and Ernest Borgnine, for which the real McCall re-recorded a new version of the song with lyrics adjusted to match the movie's plot, played over the closing credits. A dozen C.W. McCall songs in total appeared on Billboard's Hot Country Singles chart over the years, including the sentimental Roses for Mama in 1977, which reached number 2 on the country chart and became McCall's second biggest hit after Convoy itself, though it never came close to matching the cultural reach of its predecessor. A sequel song, Round the World with the Rubber Duck, continued the story the following year, sending the same fictional convoy across Britain, France, both halves of a divided Germany, the Soviet Union, Japan, and Australia, though it found far more modest commercial success than the original. Bill Fries left the music business by the late 1970s, retiring the C.W. McCall persona before briefly reviving it for 2 more recording projects, in 1990 and again in 2003, with Mannheim Steamroller. He eventually relocated to Ouray, Colorado, a small town known as the Switzerland of America, where he was elected mayor and served 3 terms between 1986 and 1992, with his signature achievement being the restoration of the town's historic city hall after a 1950 fire. Convoy experienced a dramatic and unexpected revival in 2022, when it became an anthem for the Freedom Convoy protests against COVID-19 restrictions, particularly among truckers in Canada. Fries gave his blessing for the song's use in what would turn out to be one of his final interviews before his death from cancer. That same year, at age 93, expressing genuine enthusiasm and energy about the renewed interest nearly half a century after the song's original release. The surge in streams, downloads, and licensing requests that followed that 2022 moment demonstrated, in real time, how a single 1975 novelty record could still generate fresh revenue streams on demand, almost 5 decades after it first topped the charts. Number 2. Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, by Looking Glass. Looking Glass formed at Rutgers University in New Jersey in 1969, and their song, Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, written by lead vocalist and guitarist Elliot Lurie, reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 1 week in August 1972, selling over 1 million copies after Columbia Records president Clive Davis signed the band to the Epic label. The band did chart once more the following year with Jimmy Loves Mary Ann, which reached number 33, enough for some sources to debate their pure one-hit wonder status, though Brandy remains overwhelmingly the song people know, and the song the band is permanently identified by in pop culture. The band broke up in 1974, not long after Lurie departed to pursue solo work. He released a solo album and a handful of singles on Epic and on Clive Davis's newly founded Arista label, none of which found meaningful commercial traction. By his own account, that period was followed by several genuinely difficult years living in Manhattan, attempting to restart a career that had peaked so suddenly and so early. Lurie eventually made an unusual career shift. He moved to Los Angeles in 1984 and became a music supervisor, working both independently and eventually as an executive in charge of music for 20th Century Fox. In doing that work, Lurie has said, he learned the mechanics of sync licensing and master use licensing from the other side of the business entirely, the side that decides which songs get placed into films and television shows, and what gets paid for the privilege of using them. Knowledge he had never possessed back when Brandy was earning him his original windfall in 1972. That professional experience made what happened decades later feel, in his own words, like his life coming full circle. In 2017, director James Gunn included Brandy prominently in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, with the film's central antagonist character, Ego, played by Kurt Russell, describing the song as possibly Earth's greatest composition. Lurie received the licensing request through his music publisher roughly 9 months before the film's release, and said he was thrilled when he learned how prominently the song would be used. Having already watched and enjoyed the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, despite it not being the kind of movie he would typically choose to watch on his own. Speaking to the press afterward, Lurie was candid about what decades of royalties from one song had actually meant for his life, telling one interviewer, "The income isn't something you can live on completely, but it makes the good times better, and the hard times a little easier." When asked directly whether he agreed with the film's claim that Brandy was Earth's greatest composition, Lurie laughed and named Desperado by the Eagles instead, a song, notably, that was never released as a single at all. The song has continued generating revenue well beyond that single film placement, through additional cover versions recorded by artists including the Red Hot Chili Peppers and country star Kenny Chesney, alongside ongoing placements in films and television productions, ranging from Charlie's Angels to The Simpsons, where a melancholic lullaby version was sung by a character in a 1990 episode. Decades after a New Jersey college band recorded a song almost by accident on their debut album, Brandy remains one of the most licensed and re-recorded pieces of music to emerge from the entire early 1970s soft rock era, a continuous source of income for the one man who wrote it. Drawn from an entertainment industry he later came to understand intimately from the other side of the negotiating table. Number 1. Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum. Norman Greenbaum wrote Spirit in the Sky in roughly 15 minutes, inspired by watching country singer Porter Wagoner perform a gospel song on television, and feeling drawn to create something that captured that same spiritual energy while reaching a broader, more secular pop audience. Greenbaum had already spent the mid-1960s as part of a quirky psychedelic folk group called Dr. West's Medicine Show and Junk Band, which had a minor novelty hit of its own with The Eggplant That Ate Chicago. The finished Spirit in the Sky recording, built around a distinctive fuzz guitar riff based on an old blues lick, and a spiritual lyric about wanting to be ready when it's time to meet one's maker, reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the spring of 1970, and sold over 2 million copies within its first year of release, topping pop charts internationally. Greenbaum never had another hit of comparable size, despite charting again briefly in 1970, with the considerably less successful Canned Ham, a song that gave a clear sense of the quirky, lighthearted style he had built his early career on. Before Spirit in the Sky unexpectedly became something far more serious and enduring than anything else in his catalog. He spent part of the 1970s running a farm in Petaluma, California, raising goats, chickens, sheep, and pigs, living in large part off the ongoing royalties from his one massive single, and later working various other jobs, including managing a restaurant, during a period when he had stepped back from the music business almost entirely. What happened over the following decades, however, turned Spirit in the Sky into one of the most financially durable recordings of the entire one-hit wonder era. The song's first major film placement came in 1987, when it was used in the Ally Sheedy movie Made to Order. From there, placements multiplied steadily across more than 50 films, including Apollo 13, Ocean's 11, and Guardians of the Galaxy, alongside more than 30 commercials for products including Gatorade, in a campaign featuring golfer Tiger Woods, and Kellogg's Bran Flakes. As the song's performer, Greenbaum was entitled to a share of revenue generated each time it was licensed for film, television, or advertising use, with some individual placements reportedly earning him $10,000 or more, even though he no longer held the song's underlying publishing rights. Speaking to the New York Times in 2006, Greenbaum said the income generated by the song's continual licensing wasn't enough to make him wealthy. but it was enough that he never had to work another job for the rest of his life. Industry analyses have since estimated the song generates a steady six-figure income annually for Greenbaum, derived almost entirely from sync licensing fees for film, television, and advertising placements, described by some music finance professionals as a kind of Swiss Army knife of licensing utility, fitting almost any uplifting or spiritually resonant visual moment a director or advertiser might need to score. By 2023, estimates placed Greenbaum's overall net worth at approximately $5 million, built almost entirely on the continued earning power of a song he wrote in a quarter of an hour more than half a century earlier. The song was played during the In Memoriam segment of the 2022 Academy Awards ceremony, and funeral directors have told Greenbaum directly, in correspondence he has shared in interviews, that it remains one of the most frequently requested songs at memorial services, surpassed only by Danny Boy. Greenbaum has reflected that the song's longevity comes from a kind of generational handoff. It started with grandparents who remembered it from 1970, passed to their children, and now reaches grandchildren almost entirely through its constant presence in movie soundtracks, rather than through radio play. Now in his 80s and still occasionally performing, Greenbaum was critically injured in a 2015 traffic accident in Santa Rosa, California, when the vehicle he was riding in collided with a motorcycle, leaving him in a coma for nearly a month and not expected to survive. He recovered and returned to performing within the year, appearing at a benefit concert for wildfire victims in Santa Rosa, outlasting, by a wide margin, almost every artist of his era who never wrote a song quite as permanently bankable as his one and only hit. 5 different songs, 5 very different paths through the music business, and one shared lesson that runs through every story here. A single great song, placed in the right film at the right moment, can outlive an entire career and keep paying for decades after the fact. None of these artists set out to build a licensing empire around one recording. Each of them simply wrote something durable enough that directors, advertisers, and music supervisors kept reaching for it, generation after generation, long after the original chart run had ended, and the artist behind it had moved on to entirely different lives. If any of these brought back a memory, or surprised you with how much money they're still quietly making, let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this one, hit like and subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.